All right, guys, this is our Of Mice and Men theme test directions. So I'm going to talk you through what this assessment is going to be like. First of all, don't sweat this. Don't go too crazy about it. All I'm looking for you to do is do some writing that shows me that you listened to / read the book, and you took some of those quizzes. And now we're going to demonstrate some understanding, okay? So let me go through this with you step by step so you completely understand how to do the whole thing. Okay, number one, there's 3 themes that we're talking about that you have all watched the presentations on. The first one is the American Dream. We've defined that. That's rooted in the pursuit of happiness in our Declaration of Independence. We're going to talk about the weak and the strong, okay? So there's weak people in this book. People who are perceived to be weak, and people who are perceived to be strong, which relates to the time period. Some of the weak ones in this book, or the ones who are presented as weak, are people who are disabled, either physically or mentally. And the strong are people who are fighters. They're physically strong, and they consider themselves mentally strong. Okay? And this theme, which is a huge one, minorities, marginalizations, and scapegoating. So, out of these 3 themes, what we're going to do is you're going to take what you've learned, you're going to choose one of these themes that you feel really comfortable with, okay? So, choose one, either American Dream, Weak and the Strong, or Minorities and Scapegoating, Marginalizations. And once you choose one of those themes, what you're going to do is you're going to take 3 of the 5 quotes that I've provided you with in the charts that we're going to talk about in a second, and you're going to write an essay, 3 paragraphs long. Each quote is going to be a paragraph, all right? 1 theme, 3 quotes. Each quote becomes its own paragraph in the essay, all right? So if I pick the American Dream, that would be the subject, the topic of my essay. Each of the 3 paragraphs would be about a different quote from that theme. My first paragraph might be about this quote. Well, said George, we'll have a big vegetable patch and a rabbit hutch and chickens. And when it rains in the winter, we'll just say, the heck to going with work, and we'll build up a fire in the stove and sit around to it and listen to the rain coming down the roof, said George to Lenny. So if I picked, that was one of my quotes that had to do with the American Dream, what I'm going to do is I am going to put that quote into my own words and say, Lenny and George have this idea that they're going to be financially independent and they can basically make their own choices when they have their own farm, when they have their own place, when they're financially free and stable, and they're going to be able to have a lot of choices. I'm going to tell what that quote has to do with the theme. Well, the American Dream is the pursuit of happiness, so this quote has to do with the theme because it is 2 people who want to pursue independence and happiness, all right? They're going after that thing. And why the quote's important to the rest of the story? Well, this is kind of the thing that keeps them going from place to place and town to town, all right? There's a lot of hardship in each one of these places. There's some accusations against Lenny in some of these towns. The work that they're doing is hard as ranchers during the Great Depression. It's not really luxurious work. They're not completely comfortable. They're always under a boss, having to deal with other workers who are not so nice. And that is the thing, that dream of having their own place and being able to make their own choices, being able to control their own fate. That's what that has to do with the rest of the story. All right, so I just did that for you verbally. Okay? After I took my essay, let's say I did the American Dream, and I used this quote as one of the quotes from the 5 that I chose, that would be 1 paragraph. After I finish this paragraph, I'm choosing 2 other quotes and doing the exact same thing. Okay? All right, so here are our 3 themes, A, B, and C. So we're going to start with the first one, the American Dream. So what this chart offers is, here's the quote. So this one says, well said George, we'll have a big vegetable patch and a rabbit hutch and chickens. I just read that on the previous page. This comes from chapter 1. The speaker is George, and it's spoken to Lenny. So I give you a lot of information about each of these quotes. All right, our second quote that has to do with this theme is, "We could live off the fat of the land." That's from part 3. Lenny says that, and he says it to George, and that really is just, has to do with, we are going to live off the things the land gives us. When we have our own land, we're going to be able to support ourselves. We're going to be independent. We're not going to have to rely on anybody else. We're not going to live off the boss's commands. We're going to live off the fat of the land. Number 3 says, "I seen hundreds of men come by on the road and the ranches with their bindles on their backs and that same damn thing in their heads. Every damn one of them has got a little piece of land in his head, and ever a goddamn one of them ever gets it. Just like heaven. Everybody wants a little piece of land. I read plenty of books about out here, and nobody ever gets to heaven and nobody ever gets no land." So that's from part 4. Remember, Crooks says this, who's the African-American character in here, and he says it to Lenny. So what we're going to do is put that into our own words, right? Crooks has got a very pessimistic view of things. How's that have to do with the rest of the story? Well, this is kind of like what we're all about, all right? Crooks sees a ton of people come in with the same dream as Lenny and George, and nobody ever gets it, all right? And we see at the end of this book that George and Lenny don't get this, all right? So that's an important part of the story. All right, here's our fourth quote. "I think I know from the very first, I know we'd never do her. We used to like to hear about it so much I got to thinking maybe we would." And this is spoken by George. And this is where he kind of thinks, man, I think I knew it from the beginning that the American dream is not something that we could ever attain, right? I knew we'd never get to this farm that we're planning in our heads. I used to like to hear about it so much, and I kind of fooled myself into thinking we would get it, but it's never going to happen. All right, that's a big part of this story. It fits in because it's really the thing that gets George and Lenny from place to place, and it relates to that American dream because everybody has this dream in their heads that they want to be independent. The fifth quote says, "No, Lenny, I ain't mad. I never met mad, and I ain't now. That's a thing I want you to know." Okay, so in here, George is kind of confessing that he was never really mad at Lenny. He just gave him a hard time over nothing, and that he knew Lenny was a part of this dream, and he's not going to be mad at him. He's always going to carry his memory on, and that he's really kind of thankful to have Lenny around because he helped him sustain this dream. And now that Lenny has to go, that he's kind of letting go of that dream at that point. The dream is actually dying with Lenny. Okay, so that's the American dream. Take whatever I said out of there, and you can use that in your essay. All right, here's our second theme. This is theme B. Remember, you can choose this one. You only have to choose 3 of these quotes. There's 5. You're only choosing 3. All right, so the first one says, "Good guys like us work on ranches, are the lowliest guys in the world. They got no family. They don't belong any place, and with us it ain't like that. We got a future. Lenny broke in, but not us. And why? Because I got you to look after me, and me to look after you, and that's why." All right, so the weak and the strong is guys on these ranches, they're the lowliest people. All right, they're kind of like the weakest people in here. But they also have this strength, which is they have each other. Okay, and that's a big part of the book, is because they help each other get through some of these tough times until it gets to the very end, and they can't get through this one. All right, a hard decision has to be made by George. Second quote says, "Carl's right, Candy. That dog ain't no good to himself. I wish somebody'd shoot me if I got old and a cripple." So this is said by Candy. I'm sorry, this is said by Slim to Candy. And he's talking about Candy being the weak one, all right? And Candy's really like this dog because he's kind of a weak character in this book. He's physically handicapped, and he kind of tries to get in with George and Lenny to be a part of their dream. But the dog is also a weak force in this book because it has to be taken out. And Candy's a weak force because he doesn't shoot his own dog. He leaves it up to somebody else. All right, the third quote, "I would have shot the dog myself, George. I should not have let no stranger shoot my dog." So Candy says this. And Candy, because he is physically handicapped, is a weak character. And this choice that he made is he sees it as weak because he should have been the one to take care of his own problem. All right. Now think about George too. Maybe George hears this because when it comes down to it and someone has to be taken care of and shot, whether or not it's the good decision or moral decision or not, George takes care of his own business and he doesn't let another person punish Lenny. Quote number 4, I've seen hundreds of men come by on the road. We talked about this when their bindles on their backs, same damn thing in their heads. So the weak are the typical people who are coming with these packs on their backs, right? When Crooks says this, one of the characters who's in some ways seen as weak on the farm because he's ostracized and set aside, he says there's a lot of these low people who are travelers who come to these farms with big ideas and big dreams in their heads, but no one ever gets it, all right? No one ever achieves that dream. And that's a little bit of a weakness. And the 5th quote, which is kind of a symbolic quote, it's happens later in the book. I think it's part 6. And this is the narrator kind of showing this. It's when Lenny commits his crime against Curly's wife, and then he takes off and he goes down to the river and he sees a water snake and how it eats this. He sees a heron and he eats this water snake, right? Kind of plucks him out of the water and just like gobbles him down. And that's kind of like the survival of the fittest. This bird doesn't think twice about eating this snake. And that's kind of like what's going on with Lenny and George. Lenny being this snake and the heron being society and the people around him. He gets eaten up. He's mentally disabled. He's unable to control himself or fit in with the conventional society around him, and he gets swallowed, basically. That has to do with that final act that George commits against him. Okay, 3rd theme is C, minorities, marginalization, and scapegoating. Remember, pick 3 of the 5 quotes, and then each quote is going to become its own paragraph, and you're going to do what's in those 3 bullets on the front page, right? Explain it in your own words. What does that have to do with the theme? What does it have to do with the larger story? So this one says, Carl's right, Candy, that dog ain't no good to himself. I wish somebody would shoot me if I got old and a cripple, said by Slim to Candy, right? So this marginalization is this physical deformity, right? And there are characters with physical deformities in this book, and they are put to the side. They're minorities, and they don't really fare too well. They're not treated as people who are part of mainstream life on the ranch because they're seen as weak. All right, our 2nd quote says, I've seen it over and over. A guy talking to another guy, don't make no difference. If you don't hear or understand, the thing is they're talking, they're sitting, still not talking. It don't make no difference, it's just the talking. All right, so Crooks is this marginalized character. He's an African American. He doesn't stay with the other men who are white in the bunkhouse. He has his own place that's off to the side. And he's really on the margin of this small society here, right? 3rd quote, a guy needs somebody to be near him. He whined, a guy goes nuts if he ain't got nobody. This is Crooks again, who's a very important character in the book. He says this to Lenny, someone who's also marginalized because of his mental deformity. He is saying that you need a person near you. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to have people surrounding you who are going to give you support, like George does with Lenny and Lenny does with George. Although Crooks, because he's an African American, doesn't have any of that. All right, he's completely marginalized. The 4th quote, why can't I talk to you? I never get to talk to nobody. I get awful lonely. And that's said by Curly's wife. Curly's wife, because she's a female, is marginalized, right? She's a minority, just like Crooks on this ranch. So she's been set off to the side. She's been marginalized. She is not in the center of things. People don't respect her and her points of view. She's seen as, if she talks to anyone, she's seen as someone who is a tart or a prostitute or someone who's got loose morals just because she wants to talk to somebody. Okay, so she's being scapegoated a little bit. And 5, no, Lenny, I ain't mad. I ain't never been mad. I ain't mad now. That's the thing I want you to know. And that's George talking to Lenny. And what's going on there is Lenny's been marginalized. Lenny has been, he's kind of been scapegoated. So when something bad happens, it always comes down to Lenny. And Lenny can't really see what's going on for himself because of his mental disability. He doesn't know how to fit in. He doesn't know how to conduct himself. And a lot of the stuff that goes wrong in some of these societies are going through a tough time because of depression, are scapegoating Lenny because of that. So he's seen as a victim, although he is also a perpetrator, someone who's committed some crimes, but not knowingly or willingly, just out of his own disability. So he's been marginalized and scapegoated. All right, he's a minority in the book. All right, so here's our summary. This is to summarize the whole thing. You're going to pick one theme, either A, B, or C: scapegoating, marginalization, and minorities, or the weekend is strong, or the American dream. All right, once you pick A, B, or C, just one, what you're going to do is do 3 of the 5 quotes for that theme. Go back to the chart, pick out 3 quotes that you can make sense of. Make each one of those quotes one paragraph. All right, so the 3 quotes that you choose from the 5 become paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and paragraph 3 in your essay. All right, so you're going to have 3 paragraphs in your essay like we talked about. Each paragraph should be about the one of the 3 quotes, and then within each of your 3 paragraphs, talk about what the quote means in your own words. Talk about what the quote has to do with the theme that it's a part of on that chart, and talk about why the quote's important to the rest of the story, the bigger picture. All right, so that's going to be a paragraph. That's going to make up your paragraph right there. All right, guys, good luck. You can do this. If you know the book a little bit, you'll be able to get yourself through. Just show me you kind of have experienced the book. You know about it. You know some of the characters' names. You've thought about it. And you're going to be able to get full credit for this. If you have any questions, you know where to email me. My email's on every assignment that's in Schoology, or you can call me. My number's in Schoology as well. Text me if you have any questions. All right, guys, good luck on the test. Hopefully I'll see you soon.